Welcome, everyone. My name is Bill Sellers. I'm the president of the Journey Through Hallowed Ground National Heritage Area and of National History Academy. And we're thrilled to have Karen Hughes White with us today. Before we start, just to tell you a little bit more about both the Journey and National History Academy, we've had a series of presentations from defining places around the country through National History Academy, but National History Academy is operated by the Journey Through Hallowed Ground National Heritage Area that was started as a nonprofit in 2005, was declared a National Heritage Area by Congress in 2008, and works to encourage civic education, historic preservation, conservation, and Karen has been a part of the journey from the very beginning. We then started National History Academy in 2018 to bring students from all over the country to the defining sites of American history that are in our region or just outside of our region. We go from Gettysburg to Monticello, have Harpers Ferry, 12 presidential sites, 11 national parks, Main Street communities, hundreds of African-American sites related to African-American history. But during our residential National History Academy, we also bring students to places like Jamestown and Mount Vernon, and multiple trips to Washington, D.C., and have inspiring speakers from around the country. For students who might be interested this summer, we're offering an online program, a series of one-week programs and some workshops, and you can learn more about that at nationalhistoryacademy.org. But we are incredibly honored today to have Karen Hughes White with us. Karen is the co-founder and director of the African American Historical Association of Fauquier County, Virginia, which is an amazing place. Karen traces her own family back 8 generations in Fauquier County and has been interested in genealogy pretty much her whole life. Hasn't it been, Karen? Yes, so I think you're on mute right now. She started the association. They have a wonderful museum that preserves primary sources, a lot of oral histories, photographs, books, documents. It's a unique place that places local history in national and even global context. It's one of the best museums of its kind that I've ever been to, and I know Karen also traces her roots back to Monticello. One of her ancestors, or multiple of her ancestors, were enslaved at Monticello. So she has an incredible personal story. But we're thrilled to have you here today to talk about the Network to Freedom. There were many networks throughout the country with the Underground Railroad, but Virginia and this region was one of the primary areas, and Karen is one of our national experts on the topic. So Karen, with that, I will turn it over to you. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. I'm going to start by just saying thank you again and see if I can't get this screen up. This is, okay, let's see. Needless to say, where did it go? Are you able to see my screen?
Not now.
Okay. Now, are you?
No, and we just had it up, so we'll get it going.
Go back in and tell it to share my screen again. Let's see.
There we go.
Okay. You have to bear with me. I'm in a different generation. Okay, we'll start from the beginning. So first and foremost, I want to thank the Journey for this opportunity to talk a little bit about the Network to Freedom. And of course, we know that the journey leads from Charlottesville on up to Gettysburg and beyond. And the beyond is interesting as well. But today, because our organization mainly focuses with Fauquier, we're going to talk a little bit about Fauquier leading up into Pennsylvania. Hallowed grounds and African American memories come in many forms and fashions, but today we're going to talk about the sites and documenting these sites along the hallowed grounds. I'd like to acknowledge Eugene Shields and his rendering of an Underground Railroad map in the Northern Virginia Piedmont area, which we are using today. Now, of course, when you're talking about the Network to Freedom, you're talking about the resistance to enslavement. And that resistance comes in forms where you'll be able to find the records in church records, because we found that people were excommunicated because they were being disobedient by running away. They were sold down south. We find resistance recorded in personal diaries, newspaper accounts, advertisements, broadsides. We'll find them in documented county records, in the deed books, fugitive slave affidavits, jailer accounts, where they housed Negro runaways, where they advertised for them, where they provided food, shelter, and rations for them, even patroller accounts. Anytime you're trying to document, you have to try to pull from all the resources available to you, and these are just some of the resources that are available. Freedom seekers left in many ways. They escaped, they were considered fugitives, they absconded. You'll find different wording at different time frame. Here you're looking at Negro Tom, who calls himself Thomas Jackson. He's 47 years old. This advertisement gives a description of him, of where he was probably going. It also comes with a date, and it tells you where he's leaving from. The area he's leaving from is Thoroughfare in Prince William County, and Prince William bumps up to Fauquier County. Another person in the Prince William Thoroughfare area is Spencer Hall. There's an advertisement for Negro runaway Bob, who was last seen in the presence of Spencer Hall, a free Negro. It is rumored and speculated that Spencer may have been aiding people that were seeking their freedom. He lived in the Bull Run Mountains, in the area where the white rocks are. If you ever or 55, be able to see that area. He has descendants living in Fauquier County today. This is the Chapman Mill off of 55. This is the area in which I'm talking about. This is where Matilda in 1804 was enslaved by George Chapman. And the description on the ad for her is that she is quite white, and being a mulatto, she is scarcely to be distinguished. So if I'm trying to map this area, I'm looking at the Thoroughfare Gap area, which I have highlighted here along the journey. Dr. William Edwards resisted by flight, October 25th, 1848. His memoirs are published, and he gives his escape route. If I can recall correctly, he went into Orleans because someone had recently emancipated some people, and this person wrote him up a free register under the name of the person that had been emancipated. He left Orleans, he went into Winchester, up near Harpers Ferry, on into the Potomac, on into Pennsylvania. There was resistance with individual elopements, where people left individually and also in group elopements. So if people are going to leave in a group, there had to be some type of network. Now, I'm going to show you a network here today. Here is Charles and Daniel. They're being advertised for their return. They're given the description where Daniel is a mulatto, about 23 years old, weighs about 185 pounds, and Charles is a bright mulatto, about 19 years old. And they had left in the company of 8 others belonging to James K. Marshall, Dr. Stribling, and Mrs. Marshall. Now, John P. Smith is advertising for Sally Smith. This is September 1856. They're offering a $200 reward for them. And here we have the $1,200 reward for the others that they left with. So if my math is correct, we're looking at 4 different elopement sites that people left from. Now, I would consider that a network to freedom. This is a Leeds Manor plat where I think it's James Marshall. One of the Marshalls had 25,000 acres and the other one had 50,000 acres. When you put those together, you're being able to see the lands of the Marshalls and the sites. Okay, it's 50,000 for Chief Justice Marshall. And this is this area. And then James Marshall in this area, which leads up into Warren, into Frederick, I think. Ambler land, Thomas Marshall of Oak Hill, Raleigh Colston's land. These are all, and this is Dixon land. These are all lands where these people would have been. Now you're going to see the actual sites from where they left. A resistance site is Mountain View, which is here. Jacqueline Marshall, which is Cleveland, here. Leeds, which is James K. Marshall. Now, I have not platted Smith's piece on here. Okay, if you give me a second here until my computer decides to unfreeze. This is the area that I'm speaking of in here. It's going to go here, on up to here, on down to here. This is Marshall's and Stribling's group elopement. Now, another type of resistance we found is that people try to secure their family members from the chains of slavery. Here, Hezekiah Gaskins is purchasing his wife Fanny and their first 3 children from Edward Carrington Marshall, who is part of that land that I just showed you of the Marshall area. Hezekiah is Chief Justice's son, and Edward Carrington is Chief Justice's son. He's going to purchase his wife. This is June of 1854. Then in August of 1854, he writes a will that he's going to emancipate them should something happen to him. And his executor is going to be Turner Ashby. And this is his son, Robert P. Gaskins, who was born after the purchase of his wife and children. So he was born enslaved, but he was property of his father. Now, Hezekiah didn't die until 1870. And in 1871, Edward Carrington said that he still owed Hezekiah some money. So he deeded Fanny and her 5 children now, because she had 2 more, which would have been Robert and Hezekiah after the 3 daughters. He deeded them 25 acres of land on Naked Mountain. I just thought I'd throw in a little bit of family things to tell you a little bit more about the people. Now, here is another resistance. Stanton Hutton was emancipated. He was 30 years old. This dates to 1837. He was emancipated by William H. Gaines. Now, after 1806, he would have had to petition to stay in Virginia. He did, but evidently it must not have been approved, and he left Virginia, and he ended up in Chatham, Canada. He was in Chatham, Canada with John Brown when they had the 1858 convention. when they were considering and talking about civil rights, citizenship for people of color, free people of color. And then this leads right into the raid at Harpers Ferry. And we know the Dangerfield Newby, where Fauquier, Culpeper, and Prince William claimed Dangerfield Newby as their own son. Osborne Curry Anderson, who survived the raid but died in DC from TB a few years later. We find that people resisted slavery by attaching themselves to the Union Army as contraband of war. This is a Rappahannock River crossing. So one would kind of think, okay, so these people are leaving. Who are they leaving from? Where are they leaving from? One account that we found, let me slow down a little bit. So I'm showing you on the map the area in which they crossed. You're looking at Culpeper, Orange, and Fauquier. This is Cow's Ford and Kelly's Ford. So Cow's Ford would be where they crossed, and Kelly's Ford is where part of them were enslaved. This is 1862. This is Granville Kelly's day book. He's saying that there are some of his people that he enslaved, they were lost to the Yankees. So I can only imagine that these were the people that crossed, some of the people that crossed the river that day. We now have names of people and their age. In his day account book, after the Civil War's over, we're finding that there were accounts for some of the people that were formerly enslaved by the Kellys. Andrew, Lucy Mitchell, Joshua Scott, Shadrach Scott. Joshua and Shadrach were part of the ones that crossed that river that day. We also find that Thomas O.B. Carter, will of 1840, emancipated his mother's dowry portion of the slaves, and the ones that he had enslaved, they were supposed to be removed from the county, from the state. And in August 1841, they appraised 58 people by giving names and their appraised value. This is the area where they crossed the river. This is where the Kellys were, and this is the Carter migration. I don't have all my notes with me. Okay, from that Carter migration, we have people that joined the United States colored troop, second generation that left Fauquier County, that joined the U.S. colored troops. This is a diary entry from Ada Delaney. She's saying that in March of 1862, Davy and Richie ran off. The cavalry came and took Ottaway away. Uncle Billy's gone off with the Yankees. May, Uncle Billy was seen in Alexandria. July the 4th, Mimi has behaved shamefully and she ran off. August 1862, old Maria and Murray have planned on going off with their children to the Yankees. There are all types of resources to document the resistance to slavery. Ada Delaney was in this area that's highlighted. Francis Gray, 1863. Every servant left last night, 17 in number, 80 left in Warrenton. Kitty and her child left last night. Aunt Lucy seems faithful, but I don't trust any. May 26, Emily, Millie, and Minnie left last night for Yankee freedom. They were in the area of Mount Airy, this area here, just above Upperville. This is a picture of Warrenton. This is where the Warrenton Baptist Church on Main Street is. They were doing some construction and they had scaffolding around the steeple on this particular picture. 1863, we know that there were people in Warrenton Baptist Church, founding African American members. When Warrenton Baptist formed out of Broad Run in 1849, and there were 15 founding members. 6 of those were African Americans. These are the 6 that were African American members in 1849. But in 1863, some of them left with the Union Army. And from the minute books, they're saying that during this brief period of 12 months, several of our members have died and gone with and many of our colored brethren and sisters have gone off to unite with their Yankee friends. The names will be noted in the minutes hereafter. And these are the names. Now, what's neat about this, they give the if you were a free person of color, they will give you your entire name. So Carr White was the only free person of color here that held membership at the Warrenton Baptist Church. But the others, they have by their first name and property owner. Now, John Thomas was the property of Lucy Kerfoot, but they have his name. John Tongue gave the name of Maria Jameson, Fannie Nelson of Klutz. This is unique because half of the time in the record room, you only find given names. So whenever we find a surname, it is really, really helpful to the family that's trying to connect. So this is Warrenton, where they would have left from. And again, this is where they would have left when you're looking at the Journey Through Hallowed Grounds map. And in Albemarle County, it was no different. So we know that this is the home of Monticello and other sites, places. So we're looking at Monticello. This is Charlottesville. So we've come down from, we kind of touched it in Pennsylvania, and we've gone down to here. So we're covering parts of the journey anyway. This is Edge Hill. This is the home of Jefferson's grandson. And this is where some of the Hughes family came to be after the sale of Jefferson's estate, which were part of the Hughes family. Wormley was given his time, and he ended up at Edge Hill, and his wife, Ursula Granger, had been sold to Professor Battleman over at the University of Virginia. But according to the historians at Monticello, Ursula performed so badly that they had to unite her with her husband over at Edge Hill. So they did that. And her son Robert and his wife Sidney Evans Hughes were there, and the grandson Wormley Hughes. Now Wormley was born in 1851. He died in 1901. Wormley is pictured here, and he was considered contraband of war because he left with the Union Army. And they tell me that the women were mighty upset when he left with the Army. And we find him in 1870 living in Loudoun County. And this is my great-grandfather. So when we look at the journey, I've thrown in a couple of stars to show part of the people that we know about in Fauquier County that has gone, that took that flight. But we have documented 300 plus people that were advertised for as runaways or freedom seekers in Fauquier County. So that is the Journey Through Hallowed Ground Network to Freedom. And I will hopefully be able to take some questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Karen. So we're working on getting questions over from Facebook. Just a couple, you've used a lot of documents and primary sources throughout. Are there a lot of surviving documents from these times? Or are they fairly hard to come by?
There are a lot of documents. One of the best sources for documenting this is going to be in the loose papers and in the deed books. In the deed books, you're going to be able to find affidavits for fugitive slaves. at least in Fauquier County, you can find a couple in there. You're going to find jailer accounts in the loose papers, county claims. You're also going to find the hire contracts where people are hired out and that person ran away. So they're going to be trying to find that person. And one person is not going to want to pay because they ran off, and the other person is want to reclaim their property or their money. So you're going to look at patroller accounts too. You're going to look at church records, because church records, Blacks held membership at white churches. So you're going to look at those church minute books to see if someone was excommunicated for being disloyal to their master by running away. All kinds of neat things. And you've seen in diaries, many diaries are published, and then some are within family records and within Bibles. So there are a lot of sources there, but you just have to go through and find the different ones, whatever ones you can find.
Have you documented any sites in Maryland where freedom seekers hid out on the journey north?
Not necessarily in Maryland, because our main focus is Fauquier County. If we find that there's a person that left Fauquier that went into Maryland, we would have that, but not that they just, I don't go outside of Fauquier other than where we find a family member that branches from Fauquier.
And this from the Facebook page, not quite a question, but any guidance to preservation that you would give?
Preservation of sites?
Yeah, sites or documents, or just keep the history alive.
First and foremost is to write it down, record it, put it in different media sources, where today you might want to do a hard drive backup. You might want to scan it, and you have it on your hard drive, but you might want to put it on a floppy drive as well. But to take pictures, share it among family members, and see if you can get a marker put up. Put it in a deed book that this is the site of so-and-so. Record it, put it in a public space, the record, make it public. If you know of a site, fill out the application for Network to Freedom as a site, or if you're researching and you're documented, fill out an application as a facility for documenting. And if you find that this house was the place of where someone was as an abolitionist, a safe house, document it and fill out an application for it. That's how we keep it in the forefront, and we preserve it that way.
Ida Delaney, was she located near Halfway? It looked as if she was between the Plains and Middleburg.
Yes, somewhere over in that area. I don't have my notes page. It's somewhere. We had quite a few people in today, so I hope it didn't go home with one of them. Anyway, I don't want to tell you wrong, but her work is published, so that's a good thing.
This is from Barbara. She said, great presentation. She said she had a lot of relatives in many of the areas you showed. Did you find any former slave owners still after the Civil War seeking their former slaves to return them to the plantation?
Yeah, if you look at the, let's see, Freedmen's Bureau papers, there are labor contracts where they're trying to locate people now to work. And the emancipated people are needing jobs and housing, shelter. So they are going into a contract, and the Freedmen's Bureau was instrumental in doing some of that. What we did find is that some people were trying to secure family members from former slaveholders that did not want to release them. And the Freedmen's Bureau played a role in that, and helping to get children from slaveholders and things of that nature.
Was Hughesville Road between Harmony Church and Telegraph Springs named after Wormley Hughes or his family members?
Not that I'm aware of. Far as I know of, I have not been able to. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I have not been able to connect Wormley Hughes, that was born in 1851, to the Hugheses in Loudon, even though I have seen some common names that go back and forth, but I don't know.
Is there another group you are familiar with in Maryland that would know where documented sites are located?
I would first start with the National Park Service. And you can do that online. And then you're going to look at the OGS, what is this? Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. They should have some branches in Maryland, DC and Maryland. I would check with Heritage Associates, who part of their membership are two of our board members, and they are in Maryland. So they may have something on Maryland. I know that they've been instrumental in doing a lot of research and documenting other things within the county. So state, they maybe have some information on that.
Has anyone in your family passed down any stories of their flight to freedom?
No. Most of my family, I can trace here. Virginia, I know my great grandmother was born in Pittsburgh after the war, after the Civil War. Her mother, I believe, may have come from Maryland into Pittsburgh, but I don't know whether she was free when she came or whether she left on her own as a escape person. I don't know.
Someone was asking on the Facebook page, do you have any books you would recommend? Someone more interested in the subject.
Yes, but I can't give it to you right now. It's one in particular. It's the Underground Railroad, but I can't think of the author's name. She has been here, she has spoken, but I'm terrible with names off the top of my head. I'll see if I can get the information and I'll send it over to the History Academy to send out.
And Karen, you also, you've got the book Honoring Their Paths, about African-American contributions along the journey through hallowed ground that you were one of the core creators of. So
yeah, thank you.
Might plug that as well.
Yeah. Now, as far as research, I would tell any and everybody that the best book for African-American research to start is The Black Laws of Virginia, if you are a Virginia person, because you need to know the laws in order to understand how to research and what records may be available to you.
Okay. How much information do you have with regard to formerly enslaved people who stayed on to work with the former plantation owners? Were they reasonable relationships, contractual?
There were some contractual. Now, from what we gather, from what we see here in Fauquier County, and now you know that the South lost the war, but they never gave up. They continued the mindset that slavery, we need to teach these people that are now free that slavery is better than freedom. So we will give them a few things, but we will take and we will control as much as possible. So you had the Ku Klux Klan that was here, that was burning. And you had people that did various things to discourage people from working, from voting, to the point that if they joined the Union League or voted the Republican Party, they would withdraw their labor contract and try to put them out of business. And that happened on several occasions here in the county. One of the former employees here has the oral history that her great-grandfather was burned out 3 times. He was a blacksmith. He deeded the property for the Hughes. And that building is still standing as a private home right now. But so it's various things. That's in the northern part of the county. Down in the southern part of the county, I talked about the man that had to try to get his children back. One of the churches in their founding minutes said that they tried for 2 years to get property where they could worship in peace without being accosted. And it took them 2 years to do that. And that was because of the atrocities. And they talk about the men in their strange outfits. They're talking about the night riders. And on the other hand, there were some people that were fine, that they worked and lived together.
What inspired you to create the African American Historical Association of Fauquier County, and how did you go about starting it?
Well, the co-founder had all of these ideas, and she went on vacation and left me with these ideas. And I knew we had to do a fictitious name and we had to do some other things. But basically what happened, we were both doing our genealogy, and the history was so rich. And I was a mother, and I wanted my children to embrace their history because I felt empowered by it when I started to really understand my own history. And I wanted them to feel that empowerment because having gone through Fauquier County school systems, I didn't feel a part of history. It was a disconnect for me. But once I started the genealogy, I really understood that my history is strong here in the county, in America, period. And I wanted to preserve it. I wanted people to know and to feel it. That's what I wanted. And that's what I still want. I want people to be able to look at Fauquier and look at all elements of Fauquier's history, not just a portion of the founding fathers that may have come through, or not just at the labor of these skilled men or these men that were treated inhumanely, but I want everyone. I want to know about the native presence. I want it all. I want to know about every person that came here, whether they were indentured, what was that indenture period like? What happened with them? What did they have to go through? So if we tell it all, then we have all of our history. We have our history.
Great. We have a couple people asking in the chat, what's the difference between a mulatto and a bright mulatto?
I guess it's whoever was writing that document. I really don't know because I have seen some descriptions. I'm thinking some mulattoes are browner than others, and they may have known that this first generation mulatto has a deeper coloring or a lighter coloring. So I think it has to do with the shades of complexion, at best I can figure.
With Union troops nearby, how difficult would it have been for freedom seekers to leave a plantation and join with the Union troops?
Well, they did it, so it must not have been but so difficult. Where others stayed, some of the women stayed, some of the children stayed, and some women actually sent their children unaccompanied by an immediate family member, but sent them north to freedom.
That's great. We've got a lot of comments coming in just how wonderful this presentation was. I feel like some of the questions may be getting a little bit lost in the way. So if there's any last minute ones that we didn't get to. But Karen, thank you so much. This has been such a great presentation to be a part of. And I hear hopefully throughout the year, if you check back, we will be doing more with the Journey Through Hallowed Ground and hopefully getting to continue these stories a bit more.
All righty.
Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for everyone joining us. Next week on Wednesday at 4 p.m., we'll be continuing the virtual tour series with a tour of the National Mall. So hopefully see you all then.
All righty. Bye-bye. Thank you.